Hey guys, Jordan Sather here, and I'm extremely excited to be bringing you this interview with none other than Liz Crokin. Check it out. Hey there, everybody. It's the very first day of 2018, and for the very first time, I'm absolutely honored to be talking to the wonderful Liz Crokin, and I have the utmost respect for her because of the fearlessness, the absolute fearlessness she has in speaking the truth. And we're going to get into a lot of things today. We're going to talk about the indictments. We're going to talk about the quote storm. We'll talk about a little bit about her and what she's done to get here and be such a great name, in my opinion, in the truth-telling movement. And Liz, thank you. Thank you for being here with me.
Thanks for having me, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I'm sure your life over the past 48 hours, that's been pretty crazy. We'll talk about what happened on Twitter and the fallout from that, what you're doing to get your story, get your side of things out there.
Yeah, my 2017 ended with fireworks. That's for sure.
Literally.
Expecting that, but
Totally. So to acquaint people who have not heard of you or aren't familiar with who you are, how you've got here, even myself, because I just came across you a couple months ago and I'm like, this lady, she's awesome. But now you're here. I want to know your story. What got you to be the author and investigative journalist that you are now?
Well, I've always naturally been kind of an investigative journalist in the sense I've always been into reporting and doing investigative kind of work and researching the unknown since I was a child. And I majored in political science and journalism when I was in school and in college. But I got my first job working for the media actually when I was in high school. And I've been in the business of working as a journalist for like 20 years now. So I just aged myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I mean, you really report on some of the darkest aspects of society. And when I say society, I mean more so of what the powers that be of society do. So tell little bit about your passions in exposing things like Pedogate, things like trafficking, and what a lot of people don't like to talk about, but need to talk about.
Well, I've been covering, I started as a city news reporter at the Chicago Tribune for their wire service, and that was back in, I want to say 2002 or 2003. That was my first full-time job as a reporter. And then I covered hard news. I covered local crime, fires, murders, politics, that kind of stuff. And then I transitioned into entertainment, and I got my own column for the Tribune. And I also worked for many different entertainment magazines, such as Us Weekly and Touch Weekly. I worked for the National Enquirer, Star. I kind of skipped around for years, working as an investigative journalist for them and as an editor. And I literally was flown around the world covering some of the biggest A-list celebrities, people such as Angelina Jolie, Jennifer Aniston, and Nicole Smith. I lived in the Bahamas for a month covering the death of her son and her wedding and the birth of her child. And by the way, he was murdered, but that's a whole other
long story, I'm sure.
Episode. I've done a lot of investigative work for many years, and I've also covered politicians such as Mitt Romney. And in the past 2 years, I got back into politics. I will note that one of my first reporting gigs while I was in college, I was still in college, was in the White House with the White House press corps. I had an internship that put me in the White House and put me reporting in the White House when I was 21 years old.
Wow.
And that was during President George W. Bush's administration. So I've been around the block. I've covered entertainment, I've covered hard news, and I've covered politics. In the past 2 years, I got back into more focusing on politics because I saw how people in the mainstream media were flat out just blatantly lying about President Trump. He was obviously then candidate Trump, and also colluding for Hillary Clinton. So I got back into journalism to do some honest reporting about our election, what was going on with that. And then WikiLeaks broke the John Podesta emails. Mm-hmm. And when he broke the Podesta emails, I read all the Podesta emails, and I researched the emails, and I realized that they are using pizza code and food code in their emails as code for pedophilia. and to engage in acts with children. And myself and many others in the truther community have researched this extensively. I've researched this extensively for a year and a half. And I learned that the elites of this world, not all of them, but many of them, the elites that are in positions of power in Hollywood, Washington, D.C., governments across the world are involved in pedophilia, Satanism, and the trafficking of children. And I was horrified. On a side note, I was a victim of a sexual assault myself that almost cost me my life. And that happened in 2012. We don't need to get into that. But because I was a victim myself, I'm very passionate about exposing sexual predators, and especially passionate about exposing sexual predators who are hurting children, because I love children. So when I read the Podesta emails, I was horrified, realized that John Podesta has been involved in child sex trafficking, and so have the Clintons for many years. Many people have tried to expose this. Andrew Breitbart was, I think, the first person that exposed John Podesta for being involved in child sex trafficking. And there's been a complete and total blackout in the mainstream media about it, because guess what? Many people in the mainstream media are involved. So when I started covering this, I was censored, I was attacked, and I had all these horrible things happen to me. And there were some mainstream media outlets that I freelanced for who flat out told me, I had editor-in-chiefs of major publications tell me they will not cover child sex trafficking. They just won't cover it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was horrified by that no one was willing to cover this horrific epidemic. So I eventually went independent, because I didn't want to be a journalist paid in the mainstream media if I couldn't expose the truth about certain topics, particularly sex trafficking. So I've been independent since about spring of this year. I will say, though, I did one story for Town Hall about how the mainstream media has been ignoring President Trump's sex trafficking arrests. Now, this ran in February.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly after that happened, I was told that I'd worked for them for about a year. And after that story was published and went viral, by the way, I was told that they would no longer be able to pay me. And so many places that have run stories that I have published that were accurate, that were exposing sex trafficking and or other forms of corruption, have censored me or told me they could no longer pay me. There was never anything wrong with the stories I wrote. There was nothing inaccurate in the stories I wrote. There was never anyone who sent a legal letter. For no reason, I just kept getting censored and let go. So I was kind of forced to go independent if I wanted to continue exposing sex trafficking and telling the truth about these dark topics. So I've been doing this independently on social media and on my site, LizCrokin.com, since about the spring.
That's amazing. And there's blatant censorship all around, not even in the mainstream realm, because your story reminded me of Ben Swan. Ben Swan brought up the idea of Pizzagate on a local news network in Atlanta back in earlier this year, say January or so, and he had to go dark. We don't really know what happened to him. We can speculate, threatened, whatnot, but...
Well, I do know what happened to him.
I know he's still at his station. Can you explain a little bit more about what did?
I have friends that know him, and they told me because he dared to ask reasonable questions about the Podesta emails, about Comet Ping Pong, and about these horrific photos that were published on the Comet Ping Pong owner's website, who is James Alefantis, that depicts children in sexual manners, children being abused, and he used a known pedophile words such as chicken lovers and called babies hotards and just crazy things on his Instagram page. He exposed that, and he just asked legitimate questions on his news report. What do these code word means? Like, why does James Alefantis have these horrific photos on his Instagram page?
It was a great report. Yeah, it was a 5-minute skit.
And he asked very reasonable questions, and he was immediately put on a leave of absence, and all his social media pages were taken down. And I was told that he was threatened by the people at his own company, and he was also threatened by outside forces because he dared to tell the truth and ask some legitimate questions about this horrific epidemic of child sex trafficking among the elites. So that's what happens to people in the mainstream media that try to expose child sex trafficking. And that just goes to show how serious and how big and how deep this goes.
Exactly. And a lot of people have been covering it since it's been out. You have, I have, and so many out there in the mainstream realm say that there's no evidence. There's no evidence for things like that. But listening to you speak there for a few minutes, you just listed off an amazing amount of evidence that just connecting the dots with a logical brain, it's more than obvious that this stuff absolutely exists. And there's so many connections to be had. Like you.
Well, if you just simply read the Podesta emails,
Mm-hmm.
um, no one can explain the code words. They use terms like, should I play dominoes on cheese or pasta? What the hell does that mean? To this
Yeah.
day, no one has been able to explain the code words. Now, the mainstream media, Hillary Clinton, John Podesta himself have all said, Pizzagate's been debunked, Pizzagate's been debunked,
By
Pizzagate.
who?
No one's debunked it. How has it
Mm-hmm.
been debunked? And if it has been debunked, explain the code words. What do the code words mean? Why are people dreaming about John Podesta's hot dog stand in Hawaii? Why did Obama order $65,000 worth of hot dogs into the White House when the White House cannot accept outside food into the White House? And why
Mm-hmm.
are hot dogs worth $65,000? I mean, I could go on and on and on. No one has answered these questions. No one has been able to explain any of this. So when people say that it's been debunked, that's a lie. If you say something's debunked, that doesn't mean that it's debunked just because you're saying it's debunked. You have to prove that it's been debunked
Mm-hmm.
with facts, with evidence, so.
And you mentioned earlier the amount of arrests based on human trafficking offenses that have gone on just this year. And I remember the number, it was just 3,000 in the first month of Donald Trump's presidency were arrested. I'm not sure exactly what the number is now, but I've heard upward of 10,000. And there's a lot of other things that are going on that are signifying that Trump is part of this group that is working to take down this occult elite. What are your thoughts on that and kind of the behind the scenes war essentially that's going on?
Yeah, so the mainstream media, I've been tracking all the pedophile arrests that have been taking place under President Trump's administration. One of the reasons why I worked hard to help President Trump get elected and to tell the truth about President Trump is because I knew he would go after the pedophiles. I knew that he would expose the pedophiles. I knew he'd go after them, and I knew he knew about it. I have been researching this man for a very long time, and by the way, I've known him for a very long time. I used to cover him when he was on The Apprentice, and they used to fly me to New York to cover the Apprentice finales for 3 years straight. And so I would, be in a press conference setting, interviewing him, Melania, and the contestants and stuff. And as someone that has worked in entertainment, I've known him, I've known of him, I've met many of his family members. I did a one-on-one interview with Ivanka for years, and I knew that they are good people. And I've also known that he's known about this and that I truly believed in my heart that he would do something about it. Well, sure enough, one of the first things he did when he got into office was he gave a listening session from the White House about sex trafficking. Okay. No one in the mainstream media covered this. And then immediately, even before he got in office, as soon as he won, people in the law enforcement agencies were finally given the green light to go after pedophiles. Pedophiles, mind you, who have been protected for many, many years. And it's a very deep rabbit hole, and it's hard to explain in a short interview. But there have been, to make it short and simplistic, there has been a coordinated effort by people in positions of power to put other people in positions of power, such as police officers, judges, politicians, you name it, to protect sexual predators. And
Mm-hmm.
as someone that has been a victim of a horrendous sexual assault myself, I have experienced that firsthand. I have experienced police officers refusing to investigate my case. I have experienced law enforcement not doing anything about my situation. And this happens all the time. Look at Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman reported his rapist and Corey Haim's child rapist, 20 years ago to Santa
Mm-hmm.
Barbara police. They ignored him and he was mocked. So there has been a concerted effort to protect pedophiles for a very, very long time. But as soon as Trump got elected, the good people in government, the white hat law enforcement members were given the green light to go after these monsters, and the arrests started happening. So I've been tracking all of these arrests, and there have been an absolute record number of arrests under President Trump's presidency. And he said, we are going after the pedophiles. Ivanka's talked about it. Kellyanne's tweeted about it. Attorney General Jeffrey Sessions has given speeches about it to his entire, to his law enforcement members, okay? So they're absolutely going after pedophiles. And not only are they going after pedophiles, they are going after the pedophiles at the top, the elite pedophiles. Mm-hmm. And we are seeing elite pedophiles getting arrested left and right. Now, the mainstream media refuses to report on this, but I've been tracking all of them. And when I say elite pedophiles, I'm referring to people who are members of law enforcement, who are in the FBI, assistant attorney generals of states, members of the Secret Service, actors, you know, like very successful business people. There have been dozens of elite pedophiles who have been arrested over the past year, and the mainstream media has completely ignored it. And there's also been people who have been involved in child sex trafficking that were directly linked to Jerry Sandusky's child sex trafficking ring. Multiple members who have been arrested this past year, including Jerry Sandusky's son. No one is reporting these things. If they are, it's, you know, the back of the page, and it's mm-hmm. You know, they bury it. But there are, when you find out that there's an elite pedophile that's raping kids, like someone like Kevin Spacey or Dennis Hastert, what people need to understand is that these pedophiles operate in rings. And if there's one, there's many, unfortunately. And furthermore, these pedophiles, most of them are Satanists. Mm-hmm. And the rape of children is part of their ritual. It's part of rituals that they conduct to their demonic, you know, God, Baal, Lucifer, whoever they worship.
They literally feed off the negative energy of human fear and also plasma in the blood. Exactly. And as sick as that is for a lot of people, it's these truths that need to be exposed. It's like exactly. You said, all these people work together. And that kind of brings us up till now. A piece of news that just broke was that Prince Al-Walid's ex-wife was spilling the beads on him, and how this man was involved in sex trafficking rings. Now, Prince Al-Walid was one of the members arrested in the corruption probe in Saudi Arabia in early November. So discuss the information you have on the links between Al-Walid and the other people around him.
He's Al-Walid. Last name is it Talal? Is that the
Talal? Bin Talal, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's one I'm thinking of. Well, yeah, so he was arrested, and let's look at Saudi Arabia. It's legal to rape children in Saudi Arabia. To marry a child is legal in Saudi Arabia. Like, this is sickly. This is the norm for them in Saudi mm-hmm. Arabia, right? So there are a lot of people in Saudi Arabia, including members of the royal family, who are involved in child sex trafficking. And you're right, his ex was recently exposed him. Well, he was arrested this past summer, and apparently he's at the top of the food chain involved in child sex trafficking. This man has his hands in everything. This man owns shares of Fox News Channel. He owns shares of Twitter. Okay, so when people don't understand why this stuff isn't getting covered in the mainstream media, well, look who runs and controls the mainstream media. It's people who are involved in child sex trafficking, are engaging in raping children, and are profiting off of child sex trafficking. You know, so yeah, he was arrested, thank God. And I'm hearing that the royal family that were involved in this were kind of at the top of the food chain, and they were the head of the snake, and President Trump and his administration is now working their way down to, you know, the lower level elites that are involved in this. So that's the good news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because word on the street is that there's thousands of sealed indictments around the country right now that, you know, a lot of people are on the edge of their seats just waiting to get unsealed. So what do you think about 2018? You think this is going to be a pretty fun year?
It's going to be awesome. I have no doubt that 1/3 of our Congress is going to fall. And
Hmm.
when I say fall, I don't mean that necessarily all of them are going to be arrested, but a lot of them are going to resign, and we're already seeing that. Many of them are going to resign. They're going to decline to run for another term, and a lot of them will be arrested. I believe this with all my heart. Everything that I've researched is pointing that these corrupt people are being taken down in a very orchestrated um, effort, and that these sealed indictments include many elites, and many of them are directly involved in child sex trafficking.
Is that connected to any of the boots we're seeing on their feet right now?
No, right? I think so. I think
Hmm.
so. Absolutely. Unfortunately, a lot of the corruption that goes on in our government, a lot of it ties back to the child sex trafficking.
Hmm.
Well, the child sex trafficking is the most profitable um, black market business for the deep state and the CIA. It used to be drug running and running arms. Now it is child sex trafficking and organ harvesting. And there's many layers to it, and there's many people involved in it, and it goes very deep. But I do believe that Trump is taking down these pedophile elite networks. I don't just believe it; I know it.
Hmm.
He's not
All
only
the evidence is there.
he's not only arrested literally a record number of pedophiles in 2017. I think the number is going to be close to, once we get the real numbers at the end of January, they're probably going to be at least around 15,000. But he's literally breaking up global pedophile networks. There's been many times where President Trump has met with a foreign leader or spoken with a foreign leader over the phone, and then literally the next day or 2 days later, there's a massive pedophile arrest in that country that's linked to the United States. So
Wow.
he breaking up global pedophile networks, and Prince Talal is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, because he had direct connections to the Clinton Foundation. I believe he was a funder to some $25 million or something to that effect of the Clinton Foundation.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Most of Hillary Clinton's campaign was funded by the elites in Saudi Arabia.
Hmm. And not only the Clintons, but I've seen pictures of the Bushes with Prince bin Talal too. So
Oh yeah,
it's a both
absolutely.
party thing.
It is. There are people in both the Republican and Democratic parties who are involved in this, and there's people in both parties that are actual pedophiles. The whole runs deep.
Yeah, that goes to note here. I mean, a lot of people are into this stuff, but then the issue of pedophilia is also used to blackmail a lot of politicians. They'll get drunk or go to a party or something to that effect and be drugged and go to sleep, wake up, and they'll be filmed and there'll be a child in their bed or something to that effect.
Exactly.
And that's how a lot of the control is maintained.
Exactly. So, people that cover for these pedophiles doesn't mean that they're also pedophiles, but there have been a lot of people that have been framed and that have been blackmailed to look
Hmm.
like pedophiles. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's best friend, Jeffrey Epstein, who's a convicted pedophile who was trafficking underage children as sex slaves on his private island, he ran an entire operation on his island where he was blackmailing people so they could control these people. There's been many celebrities and foreign dignitaries and politicians that have traveled to his island that we now know through court records he was trafficking kids on this island as sex slaves, and he's paid off many of his victims. There were many people that went to his island who either willingly engaged in sexual acts with children and minors, or were framed to look like they were engaging in sexual acts with children or minors. And I should also note that Bill Clinton went to this island at least 25 times. This is according to court records, or I'm sorry, not court records, flight logs.
Hmm.
And Eric Prince, the Blackwater CEO, said that Hillary Clinton went there, at least 6 times. So, and again, this isn't a conspiracy theory. These are all facts that can be proven through court records, that can be proven through flight logs. Why is Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton hanging out with a serial convicted pedophile who traffics children as sex slaves on a private island? I mean,
Great questions. Great
like,
questions that the mainstream media won't answer.
shouldn't that raise some eyebrows with people? So this stuff goes far and wide, and it goes really
Mhm.
deep.
It really does. And there's two more subjects I want to touch on before I let you go tonight. One is your thoughts. You were in the mainstream media, and you've seen how the mainstream media cannot get the truth out, literally cannot.
No.
And to get this truth out and to get these connections out into the collective consciousness, there's been a poster called Q that's been on the 4chan and 8chan and online anonymous posting boards trying to phrase different questions and put connections out there that's got a lot of people stimulated in these ideas. So can you tell people a little bit about this Chan phenomenon called Q?
So Q is an anonymous person with the highest level of security clearance, allegedly, who's posting on these channels. Um, really important information as to what's going on behind the scenes, which I believe is related to what President calls the storm. And the storm is the takedown of the deep state, which includes many pedophile Satanists and people who are engaged in, crimes against humanity, which includes sex trafficking and other atrocities and other scandals that have gone on with our corrupt government for way too long. This Q person, from my research, is legitimate, is not a LARP, and it's been proven time and time again that Q, he or she, is putting out legitimate information, because Q has been able to predict many things that have happened. Q has posted certain things, on the channels, and then 2 days later that an event will happen that prove that Q was right, or Q's posted a picture that a couple days later the Department of Defense posts. I think there's been a few dozen things that Q has done to prove that Q is totally legit. Now, I believe Q is President Trump working possibly with Stephen Miller to drop this information behind the scenes to get a campaign going to red pill people as to what is going on with the storm and their takedown of the deep state, which includes the deep state pedophile Satanists. I've been telling people for a very long time, the stuff that goes on with these elitists, these occult elitists who literally are raping, sacrificing children, drinking blood, like eating babies, literally. It's too hard for an average person that has no idea that any of this is going on for them to take it in all at once. So there's been a very orchestrated effort behind the scenes by President Trump and his administration to slowly wake up the public as to what that A, this goes on and it's real, and B, that they're taking down these people. So when there are mass arrests and there are names like Hillary Clinton that pop up who are thrown in prison for sex trafficking, there's not mass hysteria. People realize, oh my gosh, wow, maybe this is real. Like, this isn't just some kind of coup or whatever. This is real, and this is really going on. So Q is being used to red pill people. Now, only people like us like really go on 4chan and 8chan. But we also go on social media, and you make YouTube videos, and I'm on Twitter, and I write articles. So we go, on 4chan and 8chan, and we read all the information that Q puts out there, and Q poses everything in questions, which is actually brilliant, because when you pose something as a question, it forces someone to research the topic. And when you research a topic, you're more likely to retain it than is someone just flat out told you Hillary Clinton's involved in sex trafficking. When Q says, why does Hillary Clinton go to Jeffrey Epstein's island? It forces you to look into who Jeffrey Epstein is, find out he's a convicted pedophile, find out he was trafficking kids on his private island, and then you're more likely to retain it. And you're also more likely to talk about it and to repeat it and to red pill other people. So Q, I believe, is legit. I believe it's President Trump working with, Stephen Miller, some other people within his administration. And they are doing this slowly wake up the people to what is going on behind the scenes. So when they do announce the arrests, there isn't mass hysteria. And the transition And the reality of what's been going on goes as smoothly as it possibly can go. And let me tell you, it's working. Okay, someone that's been covering this for a year and a half, a year and a half when I started covering Pizzagate, Pedogate, the Podesta emails, people told me I was nuts. I got so much slack. I mean, I got so much hate. So many people defriended me on social media. Literally hundreds of people defriended me on social media. Now I have people, some of those same people have apologized to me, because now, a year and a half later, they realize this is real and this is happening, and they've been red pilled. So people are slowly starting to wake up, which is amazing, because this child sex trafficking and the abuse of these kids will never end unless everybody knows the truth and they know that this problem exists in the first place.
It absolutely does. And lots of people are waking up, and that's a fact, because last thing I want to end with here, just the other day on Saturday night, it was December 30th. It was slow night. I was scrolling on Twitter and I saw you begin to get in essentially a Twitter feud with, her name is Christine Teigen. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I had actually never heard of this woman before I saw you doing that, talking to Twitter with her. And essentially you had just made some basic observations to which she then got really triggered about, and a whole fallout ensued. So I want your words and your story on exactly what happened with that.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend were on a flight a few days ago that was headed to Tokyo, that 4.5 hours into the flight turned around. And a lot of people there's been so many different reports and so many people that claim they're on the plane, they're saying X happened or Y happened or Z happened. So I don't know what really went down, but I know what
we can just speculate.
And I know what Chrissy has said on her social media page. So Chrissy Teigen was tweeting all about this, and she was tweeting about how the flight got turned around. She was tweeting about how she herself was detained. And allegedly four other people were apprehended. Allegedly some people were allowed to go back to their hotels, and Chrissy and her husband, John Legend, weren't. There's been conflicting reports, but the plane was turned around, which is highly unusual. I talked to many contacts that work in the airline industry, and for a plane to turn around 4 hours into a flight, there had to have been a really big reason to do that, a very serious reason to do that. And most likely there was someone on that plane that was wanted by law enforcement. And that's why that plane turned around. But who knows? I'm sure we will find out, I'm sure, soon enough. But Chrissy Teigen drew a lot of attention to herself by talking about how she was on this plane and how she was being detained and why she was being detained. And, to this day, we don't really know what happened with her and what was going on with her, and then what, if she was one of the reasons why this plane was turned around or not. No one, there's been a lot of false information and fake news about this. So I don't know. But, as someone that researches Q like you do, Q asks us to constantly connect dots and to also note symbolism that a lot of the elites use. And Q also talks about Alice in Wonderland. So I pulled up some pictures that were public pictures. A couple of them were pictures that Chrissy Teigen had posted herself, and pointed out that Chrissy Teigen had posted a picture of her daughter dressed as a hot dog. Her daughter dressed as Alice in Wonderland. Q talks about Alice in Wonderland. Another picture of her daughter dressed as a pineapple, but there was a pizza emoji in the picture. And then there was another picture of John Legend doing the Illuminati hand symbol, which is a well-known, Illuminati hand symbol. And I just pointed out, Chrissy Teigen has posted these pictures and, described the pictures. That's it. I didn't accuse her of anything. Well, a few days later, she turned around and used that tweet to accuse me of accusing her of being involved in a pedophile ring, which is a complete and total lie. I never accused her of anything. I was just simply making an observation on some public pictures that she had posted, which myself and you and every American under the First Amendment has the right to do. So, she started tweeting all this stuff about me, and I tweeted her back, and I said, I never accused you of anything. I simply made an observation on a picture you posted. And, we went back and forth, back and forth. You can still read my tweets on my page. However, she's since made her accounts private. But I did point out that child sex trafficking is a real thing, and that she should use her platform to draw awareness to this issue, not to attack people who are trying to expose it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also reminded her that she does run in circles with people who are rapists, pedophiles, and sex traffickers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact.
Yep, I saw pictures of John Legend and Chrissy Teigen with Harvey Weinstein and Hillary Clinton and Kevin Spacey and many others who are well known to be involved in those circles.
Exactly, and also Charles Wade, who was a leader in the Black Lives Matter movement, who, guess what, was arrested for child sex trafficking. Okay? So these are all facts. They do run in circles with people who are sexual predators, pedophiles, and sex traffickers. That's a fact. So yeah, I mean, she just went totally crazy on me, and she claims I accused her of all these things, which I didn't. I think some other people may have accused her of being involved in this stuff. I didn't. But instead of accusing the people that actually did accuse her of being involved in some of these things, she attacked me. And she's threatening to sue me and all this stuff. Well, she can sue me if she wants to, but I didn't accuse her of anything. I didn't break any law. I didn't defame her. I just simply made an observation on photos that she posted. However, and by the way, as a researcher, as a journalist, we know these elites, they do use food as code for pedophilia. We also know that they love using symbolism for their love for the devil, Baal, Lucifer, and you name it. Symbolism means a lot to these people. So some people, when they post it, it has double meaning. When they post certain images, when they post certain, words, or when they post certain, I don't know, when they flash certain hand symbols, or or whatever.
There's certain ways they talk to each other behind the scenes. Exactly. Absolutely.
They are giving code word. They're giving each other codes, and it's kind of like hiding evil in plain sight. That doesn't mean that every single person that uses some, symbols or words, is involved in this stuff, because there are a lot of people that don't even know that these symbols and words have certain meaning. But there are also people that use these symbols and words who are victims. And, I just found it interesting that instead of Chrissy Teigen asking me, what I meant by pointing out these pictures, or even asking me if I thought that she was a victim, because there's a lot of people in Hollywood that are victims of sex trafficking. They're victims of sexual abuse. This is a fact. And they have been mind controlled and abused with certain images. And I work with these victims all the time. I talk to victims every single day, and they find an attachment to these images. The panda's one of them. Obviously, pizza's another one. Some of them, Disney movies are used to abuse and mind control children, so they become obsessed with, Disney movies like Alice in Wonderland. So, I wasn't suggesting either way. I just was making an observation on a photo. But honestly, if anything, I thought that she possibly could be a victim. And if that's the case, that's really sad. Now, why would she automatically assume that I was accusing her of being a predator? She's the one that brought that up. She's the one that said that, not me. However, though, since she, started attacking me and accusing me of accusing her of things that I never accused her of, and lying, it brought a lot of attention to her and to me. And a lot of people like yourself started researching her and researching her links and researching the people that she associates and researching things that she's posted on social media. And I gotta tell you, Jordan, I was very disturbed at the stuff that people were pulling up. Chrissy Teigen has a history of making pedophile jokes on social media. I have found tweet after tweet after tweet where she's joking about pedophilia. She's joking about sex with a 13-year-old. She's joking about
I remember one said if like skinny pedos drink pedo light or something like that.
and
It
then
was.
there's tons.
Mm-hmm.
And she's also posted pictures of children and written hashtag pedo. Now, we have an epidemic of pedophilia in our country that is just horrific. And President Trump has arrested a record number of pedophiles. I don't see how joking about child rape could be funny to anyone. And so, since she drew all this attention to herself, people started looking into her Twitter feed and her Instagram pages and her other social media pages, and she's been joking about pedophilia for years. Why would she do that? Why would she do that? So
Brings new light to why she made her account private, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, exactly. She tried to attack me and take me down. She managed to get my blue check mark that verified me on Twitter removed. So, which is fine. I don't care. I wear that as a badge of honor. Look at all the people with Twitter handles that don't have blue check marks. James O'Keefe, Julian Assange, some of my heroes. But all of a sudden now her accounts are private. Well, what's she hiding?
Exactly.
And why has she made all of these jokes about pedophilia and child rape? I don't get it. I mean, I don't know any reasonable or rational person that thinks that child rape is funny. It's not funny.
Mm-hmm.
So, if she learns anything from this experience, or if anyone learns anything from this experience, I hope people stop joking about pedophilia, because it's not funny. It's very real. There are children that are currently being held in cages that are being satanically raped, tortured, and some of them murdered. There's absolutely nothing funny about that, Chrissy Teigen. So maybe you should stop joking about pedophilia.
I absolutely agree with you. You have a lot of passion behind it because you've been there, and I have a child myself, so I know the both of us. This is an issue that touches us deeply, but hopefully a lot of other people will get it and see the evidence and see these things and begin to, like you said, red pill, understand that this is a very real issue. And I hope, we have a lot of sealed indictments that we talked about. We're hoping to be unsealed soon. A lot of interesting events surrounding Guantanamo Bay, Mattis being there, and like you mentioned, flights turning around, weird flights going places with no call signs, and what's going on with the air. And but I hope a lot of these events, turn out positively for all of us in 2018. What do you think?
We're going to see the arrests will be announced. There's going to be thousands of people that are going to be arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the names are going to really shake up and rock a lot of people. But these are really horrible people that have committed horrific crimes, and a lot of them have committed really horrific crimes against children, and they deserve no sympathy, and I believe they should all get a fair trial and then the death penalty. Anyone that's hurt a child should get a fair trial and then the death penalty. These flights are going to Guantanamo Bay, I believe, because there are going to be military tribunals. Unfortunately, our judicial system has gotten so corrupt, and it's been implanted with so many corrupt judges who are pedophiles and or blackmailed, paid off, that are willing to protect really bad actors. So that's why there needs to be military tribunals. I think we're going to see the arrests announced for sure this year, and possibly the military tribunals start this year. I hope that people realize that these crimes that these people are going to be tried for are real. And I hope that people that maybe weren't awake before, such as Chrissy Teigen, now get red pilled. And especially the people with big platforms, I like Chrissy Teigen. I hope that they choose to use their platforms to bring awareness to child sex trafficking, to bring awareness to the problem of pedophilia, because they could have a huge impact in a positive way to save children from these atrocities and these monsters.
And when this storm really does hit, I mean, like people like you and I are already using our platforms to bring awareness to this issue. So are you prepared for all the people that are going to start following you and the publicity that'll happen once this storm actually hits?
Well, I guess I'm getting a little taste of it now with the whole Chrissy Teigen drama. you know what? I've been preparing my whole life for this.
Mm.
I've been involved. God had me working in government, in politics, in entertainment, and also become a victim so I could understand this and report on it better than most people. I've been preparing my whole life for this role. Let me tell you, it's a horrible role.
Hmm.
Exposing this and investigating this, I have nightmares almost every single night. I don't wish this life upon anyone. I've taken so many hits and so much heat. So I'm definitely prepared for that storm. Um, but I don't do this to get big followings. I don't do this to, I don't go on YouTube. I'm not really into doing. I'm not a narcissist. I'm not really into. I worked in Hollywood for years and was on the other side of the camera. I was a reporter. I didn't want to be in front of the camera. However, I am looking forward to these children being saved. And I am looking forward to people being red pilled as to this and
Hmm.
waking up to this. And I am also looking forward to getting vindicated for some of the stuff that I've reported in the work that I've done, because there's a lot of people that called me crazy for exposing this. So I will look forward to the day when people realize I'm not crazy, and the actual crazy people out there are the ones who are raping children and eating babies and drinking blood. So
It's gonna
part of that day.
it's gonna take a lot of heart not to say I told you so, but you're gonna have a huge opportunity to really help a lot of people calm themselves and understand what's going on. And thank you for doing that, helping people get it and see these things.
I agree. And you too, Jordan. You're so young and up and coming. Everyone loves you. You're doing awesome work. So keep up the good work. Don't let anyone get you down, because I'm sure you receive attacks all the time if your life is anything like mine, but you just keep moving forward.
We're gonna keep doing this together. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.